recommend with certain conditions that this would be the approval of this site plan so that they could go to engineering. It sounds like the board has already allocated funds, they just want to have the proper engineered plans.
They need also, we don't have anything, showing in writing a financial commitment that they said that they were going to give. They've not got anything dated, so there's more that the
Right.
board is requiring.
I've requested from the groups to put official posts together and a letter of intent from ADA and to hopefully have them tomorrow
Okay,
for the next township meeting. That's what I requested from Chad from ADA.
okay,
I gave
thanks,
him a
Dan.
line, just so we know that we have everything in writing and dated and all formal.
Right, okay, thanks.
Okay, so does anyone have any concerns with the recommendation? If we have the conditions of the visors, you know, that the foot candles are, you know, the lights aren't visible and the foot candles are at proper levels at the property lines. And we have to address the height of the poles. And that the plan, you know, the as-built plans are supplied to the building department, that all come in through engineering, but so mainly it sounds like it's the height of the poles and the visors are the two main concerns.
I do have a, Laura, can you explain, I don't know, I just have a thing here. As-built plans are supplied to the building department upon completion. So they don't have, the building department doesn't receive plans to begin with and then go according to those plans and inspect it? I don't understand.
No, that is the process of the building department. It's just that the ordinance specifically states that lighting as-built plans shall be submitted for all developments to which this ordinance applies. So, just specifying.
Just, that's, okay. I just need that clarified, exactly what that meant.
Okay, well,
Gary, I have a question for you. Is there the span for the lower poles you're saying? Do you know what the path of that is?
So, I'm sorry,
You said a lower pole would show, this would not dissipate, actually vice versa, expand the panoramic view of the light, or maybe Laura, you might know?
Because of the angle of the light head
Right.
Correct.
to throw the light on the field, then it's gonna throw it further.
Correct, but do we know that from the specs here? I couldn't figure it out.
Well, they didn't
I'm
show.
pretty good at it.
They didn't show like a comparison of what that pole, of what
I
a
see.
shorter pole would look like. But that is that's the mathematics
That's
of it, right?
open-ended, right? Okay.
yeah, they even suggested going to 60-foot pole if we were concerned about, you know, reducing it even more, but it looks to me like the 50-foot poles are doing the job. I don't think we need to go to, anybody wants to go to 60.
No, 50's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, so as far as wording of the recommendation, we just mainly want to make sure that the fixtures are the deep set reflectors with the additional visors so that they're not visible from the surrounding residential area. So Laura would just make a motion to recommend or to approve the site plan based on and list our conditions, be adequate enough for the.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll make a motion
all right.
I'll second.
to,
Okay. I want to hear it first.
to approve the proposed 6-pole lights for the Township Park East Ball Field contingent that a visor is added to the fixtures and that as-built plans are supplied to the building department upon project completion as recommended by our planner, Laura Hall.
Do we need to mention the height of the poles in there, Laura?
You could you're approving 6 poles at a maximum of 50 feet in height.
Okay.
That's fine to add that in there.
Add that in there, okay.
Yep. So it's pretty much, I went off of Laura's recommendation. Christine?
I don't have that in front of me, so could you repeat your motion, please?
Motion to approve the proposed 6-pole lights.
The 6 poles, okay.
Six
Six.
pole lights
Si-
at maximum of 50 feet.
Yep, for the Township Park East Ball Field contingent that a visor is added to the fixtures and that as-built plans are supplied to the building department upon project completion as recommended by the planner, Laura Hall.
Thank you.
And that covers it?
Okay, Joe, you second that?
I'd like to add that contingent on the visors, the brightness, because that's gonna be the issue.
Well, we could
don't know
add,
that.
we could add that the candle power
And I would second it.
at the property line was, you know, this 2.5, with that,
Meets the specs.
yeah, the 2.25 is well within the specs, because,
Yes. They,
Okay,
they do meet that today.
yes, all right.
okay, so we could add that to the motion as well, about the foot candle at the
Please.
property line?
That'll be fine.
Okay,
Go ahead, add it wherever you want in there.
okay, thank you for writing this down.
Yeah.
And I'll second it.
Okay, so contingent is added to fixtures. Right there, I would think, right after contingent that the visors added to the fixtures to maintain a .25 foot candle at the property line.
Yes.
Visor.
Okay, so right after visors added to the fixtures and put to maintain a .25 foot candles at the property boundary. And then I think we got it all covered.
Motion made by Bob, seconded by Joe.
Did you get the extra foot, okay. Is there any questions on the motion? I'm gonna ask you to read it back before we vote on it.
No, you don't.
Okay, well, let's make sure we get it, because we have to have a motion.
Okay,
So
we'll
the mo-
write down what
So
you
the
said.
motion
Candle.
is,
2.5.
the motion is to approve the proposed, do we put 50 foot right in there? Proposed
I
fit,
have
oh, okay, it's maximum, 6 pole
at maximum of
at,
50 feet.
okay. Okay, so that's at a maximum of 50 feet. For the Township Park East Ball Field, contingent that the visor is added to the fixtures to maintain a .25 foot candle at the property, or at the
At the
park
property.
boundary. And that as-built plans are supplied to the building department upon project completion as recommended by the planner, Laura Hall. Did you get it all? Okay.
Can I just take a picture of it?
No, because you
Yeah.
did write it all on here.
Okay,
Sorry.
any other discussion on the motion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you.
Keep on doing the good work you're doing out there, Gary. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay. Okay, next we have the rezoning of the Armada Center Car Wash. And it looks to me like this is something, you have an option to buy and you're looking to see if this rezoning is something that can be achieved before you
Good
continue.
evening. Bob Kirk, 19500 Hall Road, Clinton Township, Michigan.
Nice to meet you, Bob.
I'm a land use attorney, also municipal attorney, represented Shelby Township on that side of the table for 25 years. Andrew's a longtime friend. He's looking to buy that car wash and upgrade it. Before I went any further, he wanted to see what it would take, and it looks like there are a few hoops to jump through on the zoning ordinance, so he's here today to discuss it.
Okay,
He's willing to proceed with the conditional rezoning, because I don't think it would open up a lot of uses. So he's willing to offer conditions. Those are always difficult, because the statute provides, you can't tell us, but we need the feedback to try to figure out what good conditions are. So that's what we're here for tonight. Thank you.
okay.
You're under contract?
Yeah, it's currently an option to buy it if any rezoning is approved, but the only rezoning was supposed to be done for the additional structure on day 2, I believe. And other than that, we're just waiting for feedback.
Bay 2 is an automatic wash, it's not a tunnel wash, it'll be pulled through, everything's enclosed, there is a dryer, but he's adding on so the whole facility is enclosed.
So it appears that you're just upgrading the car wash, you don't have any other new proposal other than an upgraded car wash? Just trying to make it a little more efficient and put more cars through there?
Yeah, make it a little more up to date.
Okay. And so part of your conditional rezoning, you want it to still be open to all the B2, you're currently B1, you'd like to move to a B2, and you're saying that you won't have a hotel, motel, adult entertainment business, auto repair or service centers, collision shops, bowling alleys, billiard club, indoor archery, indoor tennis clubs, or other similar commercial recreation establishments, which would be uses that would be in the B2 district.
Correct.
Laura, do you want to kind of walk us through this? Do you have a review on, you did a preliminary, correct?
We just had the meeting here at Township Hall. We have
Okay.
not conducted a review yet.
Okay,
So, should the township wish to proceed with this application, this conditional rezoning, the next step would be to hold a public hearing. Either you could set it for the July meeting or a future date. And to consider the conditional rezoning, that would be a recommendation to the township board.
okay, and so as part of that, the public hearing, I'm just kind of going through some of the requirements for the, for this rezoning. And at that point, would we have to have all these, the engineered site plan and legal description and all the requirements at that point, or can that be done after the public hearing, or?
Well, the legal description, yes, would need to be for the public hearing, but
Okay.
the civil drawings, the engineering drawings, no.
Okay.
Because you wouldn't be approving the site plan at that time, you would just be thinking about changing the zoning from the B1 district to the
Okay.
B2.
So at that point, we're just getting the public input, finding a fact, we're not approving the site plan at that point.
Correct, that would have to
Okay.
come before the commission another time.
Okay. So first they'd be going for the rezoning, and then they'd be coming in with the site plan.
Correct.
Okay.
And so, if you could take a look at this handout, these are just pages from your zoning ordinance. I just made a copy of the B2 district, that's the first 2 pages, and then the B1 district is the second 2 pages. And in the B2 district, I just highlighted and did like a red X next to the uses that they are offering to exclude from the district. So you can take a look at this and see all the other uses that would be allowable with their conditional rezoning agreement. So they wouldn't be allowed to have bowling alleys, but they would be allowed to have a dry cleaners or gym facilities or a funeral home. And then in the special land uses, they wouldn't be allowed to have the adult entertainment or the automobile repair, but they could have a gasoline service station or a drive-through facility or a self-storage facility. Because while the applicant is intending to rezone the entire property and do a small addition to the car wash that's existing there today, there's a large portion of the property to the south that remains undeveloped. And by rezoning it to the B2, their hope is that then that would be, I think, more marketable to develop in the future. And that would allow these other uses. It's also, I think, important to note that the car wash facility today is not permitted in the B1 district. So it's not even a special land use in the B1 district. So in order for them to expand it, they do need a rezoning to the B2 district. Otherwise, they can't expand a non-conforming use.
Yeah, they are a non-conforming, because they were, before we had the B2 zoning, they were in compliance.
Correct.
But when we expanded the zoning to B2, they became non-compliant, so. Because right now, that is a special land use under B2, so technically they're non-conforming.
Correct. So, there's two things to kind of consider here. One is the expansion of the gas the car wash facility under a new B2 zoning, and then the second is the southern portion of the property that's undeveloped, and how that might, be redeveloped in the future, under the potential uses in the B2 district. Because the B2 district also includes all the permitted and special land uses in the B1 district, which is why the other two sheets of paper from the ordinance were just included, so you could see.
And is it correct that in a conditional rezoning, only the applicant can offer up the conditions? Can the planning commission request? I mean, it's entirely up to the applicant, right?
I would be very careful on any requests. I think you can have a dialogue, but any formal requests, no.
Okay, that's kind of
You
what I
can
thought.
express concerns.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a concern, is that, oh yeah, we're looking at a car wash, but then the back half of the property opens up a lot of other things, but,
Andrew, you might have to clarify some, your south parcel on there, isn't that in the village?
I believe the entrance from Fulton Road is, the rest of it, I think, is Armada Township.
Has it been annexed to?
No.
Okay.
Again, I'm not the current owner, but I believe the current owner said, no, it's not annexed.
All right,
okay. Randy?
thank you.
When this car wash was put in, they came in front of the board and got a B1 zoning on that property. Since then, the Township Planning Commission has changed our zoning ordinance in that application to a B2. Now, why is it that the applicant has to pay to have his zoning changed while we changed the zoning? Shouldn't we offer that to him, seeing that we have changed it already? Why does he have to come in, why does this property have to come in front of this board several different times because we change our ordinances? I think what it should happen is that he should be able to have the ordinance changed without having anything because it meets the B2. So we should have changed that when we did the ordinance for B2, changed it to B2 at that time. Why didn't we do that?
He's not precluded from continuing his business as it is Zone B1.
But it doesn't meet the B1 standards for a car wash, right? Car wash goes in B2.
Yeah.
So when we changed the ordinance to B2, or when we came up with the B2 ordinance, the car wash, all car washes should be put into B2, and its zoning at that time should have been changed. I don't see why the applicant has to come in front of us, pay all the fees and all that, to have the zoning changed because we keep on changing our ordinances.
Well, we don't keep on changing, but Laura?
Well,
do you-
we've changed it twice for him on this. Not him, but the original owner came in here and paid to have it put in as a B1, because
Okay.
that's what was listed. Then, a few years later, we changed it to a B2. Now the applicant has to come in and change it again, pay more money, because we changed the ordinance. I think it should be done as
You think it should be automatic?
automatic, yeah. I mean, if it doesn't meet the ordinance, it doesn't hurt him to have it changed to a B2. We should have changed it to a B2 at that time when we did our ordinance.
Okay.
That's my
Well,
feeling.
it's not unusual to have non-conforming properties, but Laura, do you have a good
Does
response?
this normally happen in other townships? How does it work in other townships when zonings change like that?
Many municipalities do initiate their own zoning changes, and usually it's to bring properties or a corridor or an area into further compliance with the vision of the master plan. So I wasn't here when this was done originally, but that may have been the intent of the township. It is adjacent to the village and to other residential properties, so maybe.
So it probably, in other communities, it may have just been changed without having any kind of meetings done, right?
Well, it's still a rezoning, so there's still the legal process that we have to follow with the public hearing, but whether the township is paying for that process and the notices, and initiating that, or whether it's applicant-driven, that's a policy decision of the community. Most times, they do pass that cost to the applicant.
Because we can be, in another 3 more years, come up to a B3. And the B3 will meet the car wash, and he'll have to come back and rezone it into the B3 again.
Well, he's
So
a
how many?
B1.
He's a B1 now, he's going into B2 because we changed the ordinance. And what happens if we go into another change?
He's going to B2 because he wants to expand the
Yeah,
business. Yeah.
it's on him.
But it still should have been changed beforehand.
Not necessarily.
No, because he's changing, if you don't mind, and maybe I'm wrong, but
I mean,
he's changing the function of the property
the-
from B1 to B2.
Not the car wash itself, though. The car wash itself shouldn't have been changed to B2 when we changed it.
Well,
The existing B1 that was changed to B2
But-
should have been changed.
But he has a large parcel there, and it may not have been desirable for him to do. When this situation came, where he wants to expand, it's better to do it this way than to just automatically change B2 to it, which is our highest, most intense commercial activity. So, I mean, it's always good to have, to take a look at each parcel individually and what's proposed rather than just blanket. I don't think there's anything wrong with the fact that it wasn't automatically changed.
I ain't saying that the other property, he would need to come in front of us to change that. But the existing property that he has, that's under the B1 should have been changed.
Okay, but it wasn't, so I understand what you're saying. Any other questions? So Lori, what you're saying now is what we have here with just this preliminary site plan is, well, we need a legal description, but with that, this is adequate enough to have a public hearing to get the public input on this rezoning?
Correct, because it's even more than that site plan. The applicant is requesting that any of these B2 uses that are not, offered as conditions to be not permitted in the future would be allowed. So it's really taking a look at that site and thinking, is it acceptable to have, a funeral home there, or
Laundry, any of these?
trailer sales, a gas station?
right, he's changing the use.
And if the answer is no, then
That's still
that would be a
changed.
recommendation of denial for the
Mhm.
rezoning.
But we'd have to have all our reasons stated
Your findings
why
of
we'd
fact.
be finding the facts.
Yep.
Okay. So at this time, you think that it would be proper to set a public hearing?
Yes, and offer the applicant any feedback, that you initially have, so that they could, be prepared to come before the commission formally in July.
Okay. Does anyone have any additional feedback? Laura, you've already met with the applicant, so you've probably given them your recommendations.
Yeah.
What were your recommendations?
Well, we specifically went over the expansion of the car wash facility, and their plan that they've provided in your packet is revised from when we first met. So they do meet those standards in terms of the parking spaces and,
Okay.
the landscaping, that type of thing. As far as the B2 uses, there may be a couple other uses in here that might raise concern. One of the things, though, to be aware of is that some of these uses that are in the B2 are still special land uses, right? So the gas station is still a special land use in the B2. So even if you grant the rezoning, it's not saying automatically that, the applicant can come back next month with a site plan. They still have to have a public hearing if they were to propose a gas station in the future, and that may or may not be an appropriate area for a gas station based on its own findings.
Do they have to come back with an application for special land use for their car wash, which is a special land use?
Correct.
This is just the beginning, okay.
yes, because it did not receive special land use prior. Or
Right.
no documentation of that could be found.
Right, so if it's rezoned, the only thing that they can do is the A through M permitted ones, with the exception of B that they're conditionally eliminating. But they could come in with any of the laundry, lodges, solar, eating, drinking establishments, excluding fast food, but they could come, any of those would be permitted, they would not need a special land use.
No, just a site plan.
Right, so it's mainly the permitted uses are the ones you really want to watch, because if they're able to meet all the setbacks and requirements of any one of these permitted uses, then they're allowed to do that.
Correct, if they can meet the parking and the dimensional
Right.
standards and the lighting, yes.
Okay.
And also the ones from the B1
The B1
district.
as well.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, say that again?
And also all the uses in the B1 district as well.
Oh, right.
Yeah, right now, they can do anything in the B1.
Oh, yeah.
The permitted uses, A through J, and then there's some special land uses, and then if they were B2, they
Yes,
would
yes.
be allowed all these with the exception of the bowling alley that they're gonna conditionally exclude themselves from. And then, of course, special land use is a whole other procedure, so. As far as the public hearing, did you have a particular, we normally hold them at our regular meetings, which are the first Wednesday of the month. Did you have, I mean, the next meeting is July,
July 6th.
so you just might want to just check your calendar before we,
Yeah, it would be
before we
July
set a
6th.
date. We usually,
I have a question.
yes, Bob?
Are we coming in for a rezoning conditional or just a straight rezoning with a special land use?
Well, we wouldn't be coming with the special land use, we'd be coming in with the conditional rezoning is what I understood. Am I
But the
correct?
special land use is the car wash.
Right, but that's not, would we hold a double, a public hearing for both?
I think you would need to do the conditional rezoning first, because otherwise, that still has to go to the township board and be approved
Yeah.
to become rezoned to the B2, which then you can seek the special land use for the car wash.
So the conditional rezoning is to rezone the B2 excluding some uses and not talking about the car wash.
It will allow you to seek the special land use for the car wash, but it doesn't automatically grant the ability to expand the car wash, because it's still considered a special land use in the B2.
Do you want a conditional rezoning agreement submitted before the meeting?
Before July 6th?
Yeah.
Yes, we would need something formal in writing.
So you need that as well as the legal description for the public hearing. And what's the deadline for noticing? Is it the second Thursday of the month?
No, that's our deadline for the planning commission for the paper. That has to be 15 days before the meeting.
15 days
And
before.
It's a weekly publication, so I would try to allow for the 20th.
Okay.
I have to look at the calendar and count backwards and then
So,
see where
so a little over 2
the
weeks.
deadline is for the paper.
So would you be comfortable getting the legal description? Would be tough, but the conditional rezoning formal, it would be next week so that we can make the,
That's not
we'd
right.
have to make the
Yeah.
public notice deadline for the July 6th meeting.
Do you want me to run that by Christine Anderson before I file it?
It could, no, she could review it before the meeting after
Okay.
you submit it.
Okay, so, let me just double check the calendar, make sure that's correct.
I think it would have to be in by the 13th.
13th.
So it would be July 6th if we do it the next meeting. And you're ready to, you want to move on this? You
Yes.
want to do it the next meeting? Okay. So July 6th, 7 PM at our regular meeting. Okay, so we just need a motion to set a public hearing for the Armada Center, what's the official name?
I'll make it.
Armada Center Car
Car wash.
Wash for our regular meeting July 6th, 7 PM, for a conditional rezoning? Okay.
Yep.
Joe? Okay, so we're setting public hearing for 7 PM for the Armada Car Wash for a conditional rezoning.
Armada Center car wash.
Yes.
Yeah. Conditional rezoning, I guess we should say from B1 to B2, that should be in the notice, to
You
B2.
guys say it or I?
Okay,
No,
right, so
that's
we-
fine.
We-
DJ, can you add the address, 22920 Armada Center Road?
I sure
I
can.
might be asking too much.
Why am I not seeing it on here?
It's here, 22920 Armada Center.
229, I'm sorry, say it again?
22920.
20. Armada Center.
Correct. It's at the top of the letter, condition.
Okay, so we're setting a public hearing for Armada Center Car Wash at 22920 Armada Center Road for conditional rezoning from B1 to B2 at a regular meeting July 6th. That's the motion? That
Yes,
cover everything, Laura?
Mm-hmm.
that's
Okay,
fine.
and that was Joe, and we need a second.
I support.
Sarah? Any questions on the motion to set the public hearing for the conditional rezoning? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We will see you on the 6th.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so that was that.
But you're opening more things for me to do.
You still have to rezone it. Maybe they can do it financial. Okay, next is unfinished business. We have PC projects. So that brings us to this here. And we have, first on our list, of shipping containers we had done. We just needed a clean copy. And looks like we have a clean copy now, Laura. You've got some additional notes and things. Do you want to kind of go through these?
Certainly. So, as you recall, the Township Board did request the Planning Commission to re-review the language as related to the clarity of the exterior finish. So on page 2 of our ongoing text amendment memo, 5, C, and D, which are highlighted with yellow, the language that was discussed at last month's meeting would now read, the exterior of shipping containers shall be painted a uniform natural earth tone that is beige, taupe, brown, gray, or dark green. And shipping containers shall be placed on a base of crushed concrete or stone or similar material as found acceptable to the building inspector. So if the Planning Commission is comfortable with this language, then we can finalize it for a public hearing, either by itself or with other amendments, as you wish.
Okay. Any questions on the shipping container ordinance, which is basically kind of our final draft right now?
The only thing I've got is that this has been on the agenda since last year in April, and there already was a public hearing on it in November.
Right. Now, do we have to have a public hearing again because of the changes?
Yeah, it's different language.
Right, okay. Okay, and I would think that if there's no urgency, we normally have a few, because these have to be advertised, public hearing, and
What is the crushed concrete for? Can we go over what that's used for? What the purpose is?
that was a recommendation by the building inspector, that he'd like to see them on some type of foundation. And I think also was that also the board's concern, that they weren't just sitting out on a bog somewhere,
I mean, what is it for? For sinking in the ground, animal control, what is it used for?
This is from now 2 years ago.
About the base.
Yeah, this is basically from our building inspector, that, let's see. If they are allowed, I'd like to see them only in agricultural zoning. They should be put on a base of crushed stone or concrete so that grass and weeds don't grow up around them. If there's no floor, they should be anchored down. So it's just going on the,
So the grass and weeds won't grow through the rocks? And
It's a
weeds?
requirement of the board, so this has been an ongoing issue apparently for, a couple of years, so.
Can I see that, please?
the board, we're recommending this to the board, and there's no sense sending something to the board that they are not going to approve. So there was talk about just having them settling and, having some type of a base so that they would be less
Really,
likely to sink.
It would probably be good for them to settle into the dirt. The reason for that is, when it settles, the base of the floor will go down to the dirt, no animals will go underneath it.
And if it settles too far, you can't get the
So
doors
if you
open.
put rocks or stone, the animals will dig through the stone, now they have a nice place to live underneath it.
Well, what do you propose?
And
What do you propose?
The thing is a permanent, or a solid structure, it's not made of wood, it's made of steel. It
Right.
doesn't bend, it doesn't tweak, it goes down all in one. They're made very, very well, they're not,
Isn't there also supposed to be a pitched roof
Okay, so what are you proposing?
according to the board?
I don't see where the crushed concrete or crushed stone or whatever you wanna put on it, you could set them down in the dirt and sit flush.
Well, make a motion.
They don't get a pass.
Moving on.
I make a motion to have the earth tone paint, that's it.
So your motion is to eliminate D?
Yeah, the crushed stone is unnecessary.
Okay, we have a motion to eliminate D from the shipping container.
I believe there was also supposed to be a pitched roof.
We didn't go with that.
We didn't go with that?
No.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to eliminate D. Shipping container shall be placed on a base of crushed concrete or stone or similar material as found acceptable to the building inspector. Do we have a second? Okay,
I don't know, I think we should investigate it a little bit more and find out more information. And
This has been,
I know all of these have been for years.
exactly,
But
and
we've only had, how many meetings last year? So we don't
We
have
didn't
time
have
to
time.
talk about them and stuff, so, I mean, it's gonna be forever.
I would like to know some dimensions too. I mean, what is he proposing? Is it just based on each, case?
it'd be up to the applicant to propose what they wanted to do, and
Well,
It's
shouldn't there be a
acceptable to the-
standard?
we're not putting, the standard is the building inspector.
No,
Acceptable
a
to the-
standard dimension, like thickness for a sub-base
No.
for a road.
No,
for-
there
It's up to
isn't,
the
there is
building
no
department or
standard.
Building official.
Correct, but,
Acceptable to the building inspector.
and that's my point. What is acceptable?
I would ask the building inspector, I'm proposing to put 2 inches of crushed 21A.
Yeah,
or
let's
whatever.
find that out. And is it gonna?
No, this gives the applicant the flexibility to do what they want. Maybe they've got crushed asphalt, maybe they got railroad timbers, maybe they got whatever. I mean,
But by
Yeah.
by having that in there, if our building inspector changes, or we have another building inspector, they might have a different idea. One might say this is acceptable, and the next one coming up will say, no, that's not acceptable. So then you have a,
No,
and
give
when
us
any-
dimensions.
no one would have to change anything.
well, then my neighbor, he did crushed concrete, but now you're telling me I have to have cement footings, because that's what this building inspector is accepting.
That would be,
Is
just
acceptable.
ordinance has changed, yes.
Building
But
codes change.
it wouldn't be an ordinance
But it says
change.
crushed concrete, so you can still use crushed concrete.
I'm just asking, and I'm not trying to argue, be argumentative, but
No,
I
I'm
just
not
wanted,
either.
Okay, well, we've got a
Just-
motion, and
oh.
I didn't hear a second. Did anybody second that? So I'm thinking that motion died. So, I mean, if somebody researches this and comes up with a great idea before this goes to,
Funny how
planning,
we-
a public hearing, that's fine, but
It's funny how we never had any kind of complaints on the shipping containers, never had an issue, and now we have to build them like Fort Knox. It's a
We've had
temporary,
complaints
it's a temporary structure that
This-
can be moved around. It's not something that it should be permanent.
Okay, this is brought to us from the board, we're directed by the board. If the board asks us to look into a ordinance, we will look into an ordinance. This is what we came up with at the direction of the board. So the board
Okay.
thinks that there's an issue here, so we're addressing it.
I think that if we leave shipping containers shall be placed on a base of crushed concrete or stone, and leave it at that, and take out or similar material as found acceptable to the.
Why are you
building
making it
inspector.
harder to the applicant? You're giving them you're giving them a third option. And now you're saying it has to be concrete or stone. This allows them some flexibility. Maybe
Well-
they want to use crushed asphalt. Maybe they want to, I'm just saying, you're taking away, you're making it harder for the person when there could be a perfectly, you say research, well, maybe somebody will research and find out that this substance is way better than crushed concrete or
Well, then why don't
stone.
we list that in here?
Because it's up to the applicant, we're giving them the world, we're say, open, anything acceptable.
Can we ask Mel,
This is a planning commission discussion.
can we ask Mel why he wants crushed concrete under?
Said, because control
He
weeds.
wants crushed concrete so the weeds and stuff don't grow around.
For the weeds don't grow through crushed concrete.
That slows it down.
That's
Is
he
that what
said.
that says? I didn't read that, I'm sorry.
So we have to
Maybe we should
worry
all
about
have a
weeds.
copy
What
of
if you
this.
want grass right up next to it?
You'll have to ask Tom. I could just only tell you what he said.
Sure.
I mean, it's so ridiculous, the whole thing is.
I kind of, and I'm not, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, well, if someone comes up with something, we're not setting a public hearing on this, but at this point, this is the final draft. And
Here.
I had a motion and no, okay, Laura, help.
So if I could just add, the wording in here of the crushed concrete or stone base, or, as allowable, or as found acceptable to the building inspector, is very similar to, let's say, your monument signs or your pole signs that are permitted. It doesn't specify what the foundation has to be for those, but the building inspector, of course, has to follow the code for that. So usually you won't see, you have to have 2 inches of crushed concrete or 6 inches in the
Right.
zoning ordinance itself. It would be in the building code or the engineering standards. So this, as a planner, this language is appropriate. If you want to require a base. I don't think you need to be any more specific than this.
Okay.
But there's nothing on the shipping container.
In Mel's memo, it says also that if there is no floor in them, that they should be anchored down.
They're all gonna be on the floor, yeah,
Yeah, typically,
unless somebody cut the bottom off.
yeah. All right, then leave it.
It's a steel box.
Okay, just a steel box. But, let's see, next one we have is small scale entertainment, and we do have, a revised definition there, so Laura, let's take that one.
Yeah, so previously, currently the ordinance allows for 1,500 persons to attend a small-scale entertainment event. So we've changed the language to say that it can be non-permanent seating and reduce the capacity to 200 persons. And this number, we've really exhausted the research on small-scale entertainment venues in Michigan, but also like across the US, and there doesn't seem to be a typical standard. So looking at, 200 persons, you're gonna have, 50 to 75 cars probably, which going to an event, you're getting past the small scale the small scale operation of that. And then there's some provisions in here about no more than 3 consecutive hours in any 12-hour span, and shall not be conducted between the hours of 11 p.m. and 8 a.m. And that's consistent with other ordinances that we've seen. So I don't think you've had an issue with this so far, but just making these clarifications and reducing it to 200 persons, you're providing a little bit more certainty on what may take place at such an event.
It's like a decent-sized wedding crowd.
Right, yeah, that's a good way to think of it. If it's a barn wedding, for instance, right?
Yeah, this is really geared, small-scale entertainment. I'm thinking just, things that you might have at your hay rides that are gonna be like a banjo player, whatever. It's just small-scale entertainment. I think that the 200 is much closer to small-scale entertainment than that 1,500.
Right, so this is only permitted in a value add district on 20 acres or more
Okay.
already.
Does anybody have any questions or?
I couldn't find anything on it. I would too.
Well, one of the things that they talk about in this thing is always make sure your ordinances are applicable to your area. And we are, somewhat getting, we're not sprawling and, to have big events and things throughout the township, any one of these value-added operations, they kind of pop up here and there, and I'm sure no one wants to see a 1,500 person venue going on next to them. I think this is probably reasonable numbers here. What do you think about that minimum separation distance? It's not called out anywhere in the ordinance, any setbacks from the small-scale entertainment?
It's not, although your lot size minimum is 20 acres.
But that still doesn't stop somebody from putting a stage on the property line, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's something we could probably consider too. And that would go, where would that standard go? Would that go, this is the definition. That's where you'd go to get, it would just go in along with this.
We could put it in the value add district instead, and say that, 100-foot separation from any lot line, must be maintained.
Okay, because we have all these uses,
Mm-hmm.
and the setbacks are basically setbacks in all agribusiness. There's 50 feet for side yard, rear yard, and front yard is required in the zoning district. So we do have a 50-foot setback. That would be by default. Is that correct?
Yes, so it would be like on page 76, I think. Is where you would add the additional setback.
So if we wanted it to be more than 50 feet, we would put it right in with this, where it says small-scale entertainment.
And a minimum
Under
of 20
F.
acres.
28, so you'd put on a minimum of 20 acres, not including permanent seating, and then you'd put it right in there, 100-foot setback.
Yes, provided that a 100-foot setback is maintained from any adjacent lot line.
I mean, if we're looking at that, it should almost be across a lot of these, like the animated haunted house, all these, any of these type of uses like that should probably have the increased setback.
Okay.
Why did you set it to 50 feet on ag business?
No, because it says right here, page 77, setbacks for
I don't
all,
have-
for all agribusiness buildings, I'm sorry. So a haunted house would have a 50-foot setback, but this small-scale entertainment is something that would just be not done in a building most likely, so there really isn't a setback that applies to that.
No,
Conditions there's also conditions to agribusiness. That's where we talk about the noise and the lighting. Could also be another place where you could put parking areas within 100 feet of the exterior property line have to be screened. There could be something down at the end of the conditions that would address that 100, setback for, and I think any of these ones that have, noise attached to them could probably use a little bigger setback.
Okay.
then 100 feet?
No, then
50.
50 foot is the minimum side yard.
Oh,
So I just think that maybe we should kind of look at where something like that would fit, this minimum separation, and have it in the standards addressing the small scale entertainment and possibly, you know, fun houses or something. I mean, those are the only two. The rest are pretty easy, petting zoos and, of course, then you've got farm animals, you know, I guess your animals can roam right up to a fence, so that's not, that would just be the obnoxious ones. Okay.
We'll look at that.
Getting people not to be obnoxious? Oh, fun.
No, the animals.
I am happy to make those changes. Are we in agreement on the 200 persons?
I like it.
I think
Yep,
so.
I think
Okay,
that's
I
good.
think, yeah.
Okay.
Glad somebody finally came up with a good number. Kicking that one back and forth. And then we'll kind of look at where we might put some minimum separations in the standards as well.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so we're getting close on that one.
Okay.
Okay, you also had some more information on garage size limitations.
Correct. So on page 4, we are proposing that there just be a sentence added that would apply to attached residential garages, so not detached. Those already have their own scalable provisions based on the lot size, but if it's attached, it shall not exceed half of the floor area of the dwelling unit or 850 square feet, whichever is less. 850 square feet is a very reasonable size for a garage, and that does not preclude the homeowner from having a separate detached garage as well for additional storage for their personal or recreational vehicles.
So it's approximately a 4 to 5 car garage,
Okay.
based on that square footage.
I have a question for the, let's see, shall not exceed half of the floor area. So main floor? What about an upstairs? Are we going like total square footage of the whole house? So is the basement included in that square footage then?
No, I would say typically basements are not included.
Basements are included when you're finished.
Finished or if it's a walkout?
If
They
there's
include the-
egress.
They include the
They
square
u-
footage of the
I
house.
don't think they do in
when
Michigan.
They
Finished.
do when it's a walkout basement.
Yep, only if there's an
Well,
egress.
So the way that this reads is that whatever is less, so even if they had a 4,000 square foot home
Right.
with another 1,000 square feet for a basement, they were there at 5,000, they can still only do the 850.
But I guess what I was looking at, like a smaller home, you know, like if you have like a small Cape Cod or something where the main floor is 1,000 and you have your bedrooms upstairs or whatever, that's what I was, you know, I was seeing if it was the
Oh,
main floor
you would
itself,
count
but-
the upstairs and downstairs, just not the basement.
It's similar to
But you would have to.
a sale of a home, right?
yes. Well, like Sarah said, the only time is when it's a walkout. They count it.
And then you count it.
That's typical.
Okay, so that just, so long as if it needs to be listed in there, then we need to list it. If it doesn't, it doesn't, but,
To clarify.
yeah,
Excuse me.
to clarify, that was my only concern on that one.
Okay.
Now, if someone wants to build a mansion, they would be able to come in they'd have to go for a variance from this.
Yeah.
And if they're putting up 10,000 square feet, want to have a 10-car garage behind it.
The attached 10-car garage?
Yeah,
Yes, I mean, there's always the relief from the zoning ordinance. They can seek a variance and prove a hardship.
yeah, it'd be a hardship to have a 4-car garage on my mansion.
If Jay Leno moves in and wants to have his car
So,
selected,
I mean, so there's still that relief for those real unusual cases.
always.
Okay, so Beth, you just want to see the floor area,
Just clarify.
is that in our, are you looking at that right now? Or
Mhm.
how floor area is determined in the definitions?
So you just have it checked into.
It does include floor area the gross, horizontal areas of the floors, of several floors of the building.
And we do have a definition for floor area.
So we're good.
It's on page 176 here.
It excludes basements, unfinished attics, attached garages, breezeways, and enclosed and unclosed porches.
Okay, so we're covered the way it's written, because we do have a definition for floor area.
What page was that?
Page 176, floor area residential. Okay.
Thank
and
you.
So we're good with that definition, puts, like I say, that's 4 to 5 car garage, and then you still have the option of doing accessory detached garages if, you're that kind of an enthusiast.
Correct. Or variance.
All right. Any questions on, that maximum size? So half your living floor area or 850 feet, whichever's less. Okay, well, I think we got that one too. I don't think we need any other things on that, so. Okay, so no action on the second home on property. It looks like draft language is being considered by the township attorney, and we're waiting for an update on that.
Yep.
Which brings us to our favorite, the administrative
One
review
second.
process.
One second. On the
Okay.
seasonal worker, I'm still,
Okay.
and I mentioned it before, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way, I just don't like the idea that second housing, that it must be demolished. I just feel that if money has been put into this, that building should be able to be reused, as storage or an animal shelter or something. It's already a farm. I mean, I just,
No, I agree with you.
Okay.
I wasn't crazy about that one either, but
Where did you come up with that? That it has to be demolished?
it's in the,
it's in.
I know that. Who, that was previous?
no.
Or did you put that in, Laura?
Yeah, this was from,
Anything underlined?
anything underlined is
Was
new.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm just not,
That's a good point. We can, I'll talk to the attorney about some other language or repurposing or what options we have.
Okay, thank you, Beth.
okay.
Purpose, okay.
Was that the attorney that came up with that? Is that what you're saying? Or you did? Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so now
Now the administrative.
the administrative review.
Yeah.
All right,
We've all been waiting for.
This has already been decided by the board back in November, so there's really no action that the planning commission can or needs to take on this because,
Well, there most certainly is.
oh no, there's
No.
We
not.
do amendments to our ordinances, and this is an ordinance, and we have the planning commission, and we work on ordinances.
This
Because-
has been coming through since
But this,
last
what has
April.
not been discussed, this, I don't think any one of us were aware that with this administrative review, that originally the discussion was that an administrative review would be used if an active site plan was being worked on. And if the applicant was not able to wait until the next month to change his site plan, that the administrative review could make minor changes so they could continue with their progress.
And that's not the way I took it from the beginning
Well-
myself, so.
Well, this is an older ordinance. I don't think you were even here when this ordinance
We've
was
done
put
that.
in.
I think this ordinance was put in with our last planner. I don't think it's that old. It's not in our ordinance book 2 ordinances ago.
But what threw me was with this, was the age of the site plan. I mean, anybody can come in with a site, not even have their site plan and ask for an administrative review. The site plan can be 20 years old. I don't think that that's correct, and then if the applicant has already made the changes and is coming to us after the fact, I don't think that that's very good either. And then for the plans, there can just, I mean, are we accepting plans that, we changed this and we're gonna write it
What we were
with the.
going to with shipping containers. So why, this
No,
has been before
No, no,
this commission
what I'm
since last
talking
April.
about, what I'm talking about is their site plans and how they come in with a site plan and they have pencil drawings to change it. Well, this is where I'm gonna put the fence.
The
It's
ball
not
field's the
engineered.
same, the shipping containers are the same.
No.
This administrative review has been in front of the planning commission since last April of 2021.
Okay, go ahead. But this was not addressed. None of us were aware that
It only
this administrative review
became an issue
allows
when
for
you
all of
didn't want
this.
to take part in it.
Excuse me. There are no guidelines for somebody to come in and just say, I want an administrative review. There's no guidelines. So somebody can say, well, yeah, you can have, yeah, we'll give you an administrative review. Oh, well, it doesn't matter, your site plan is 20 years old. It doesn't matter that it hasn't been
If it
drawn
was
on.
minor, that was all discussed, it went to
No,
public
it
hearing.
was not.
And it was voted on by the
That
board.
was
The
not.
board
The
did
admin-
not send it
What
back
the
to
change
planning.
was in the administrative review was that we have the vice chair along with the chair. That was the only change. That was the change.
Well, if the
for that
vice chair
ordinance.
is not, comfortable with that, then somebody else can be appointed.
That's true. Somebody can.
So let's
But-
do that.
Well, let's just discuss this. Do you really think that
I've been
that's
discussing it
correct?
for over a year, so
No, you have not been discussing what I have put here. These
I think
guidelines.
that is
you-
ridiculous.
you
That's
do.
my discussion,
Well,
yeah.
good
So-
for you. I don't.
No,
I'd
I
like
know
to
you
see
don't.
what
You're
everybody
good.
else would.
Okay, Beth, if you'd like to discuss your thoughts, but keep in mind that, you know, this is an ordinance that we have, and we've heard from the board that, you know,
All
they're
I'm
not directing
asking
us.
for
to-
is guidelines.
Okay.
You can still have your administrative review, but we need guidelines. We need guidelines to say, are we accepting a site plan from 20 years ago that somebody wants to come in? Or should they come up with a new site plan?
When we were discussing all that, we were discussing it over there, on Paul Road, that new building that was put up. They had administrative review on that, right? They had a plan at that time. Ackett's didn't have no plan, that was 20 years ago, and they're having an administrative review, that's ridiculous. Anytime there's any kind of changes on a commercial piece of property, it has to come in front of the board, and they have to pay the price. It's a commercial piece of property, it's not a residential piece of property. You guys are trying to do a review on something that's not been approved for 20 years. Things have changed. Nobody, and I asked the question on the Ackett's, did they go through and look at the original plans? No, they didn't. There was supposed to be a green belt there. There's not even a green belt there, now they're putting a fence there. So no, no one did look at the plans. It shouldn't have been put through the administrative review, and you're wrong.
That's your opinion. What was done was because a result of a complaint
20
that was
years
filed.
ago, you're gonna go do an administrative review on something that was done 20 years ago.
Its administrative review is to review and approve minor amendments to an existing site plan.
That's
The
being,
the key
that's
word
being
is
done
minor.
at the moment.
It says minor amendments, that's the whole thing, that's
To
why
an
this thing is.
existing site plan, not something that's been 20 years ago.
You have an existing site plan, it's always your site plan. It doesn't disappear. That's your site plan.
It's a commission discussion.
I'd like to hear what she has to say.
If you are putting it on a site plan that wasn't even followed, if there was supposed to be a green belt there or a border, and now you're
Green-
doing an administrative review for a fence,
A green,
That's a little
a green belt that didn't survive, so they put up a fence for screening. We require screening between residential and commercial properties.
And they were
So-
supposed to contain their own water off their own property, because that's why it was a dirt asphalt parking lot. They were supposed to contain their water, they're not containing their water. That's something else that should have been looked at on that site plan, that wasn't looked at.
Right, now, we're talking minor amendments, we're talking about a fence that you don't even do fence permits. As far as the township's concerned, there is no fence permit, doesn't, Mel just make sure it's on the property and,
But isn't it different though because of commercial? I mean, it's not residential.
Right.
Residential is something different than the commercial that.
Commercial has to have a site plan done. And it's outdated, and we're approving something that's outdated.
But we're not looking at the site plan as a whole, we're looking at one element, which is that green belt, just that
Okay,
fence.
then pull up the original prints on that, and figure out what you did back then and what you should do now.
Well, we had the planner review it,
Did she
and
pull out the original plans to me?
what
The
we're,
original plan, if you're doing something on a site plan, don't you think you would have the old site plan in front of you? You guys did a review on something that you didn't even look at?
we had a
Doesn't make
site,
sense.
well, there's a site plan.
Yeah, that no one looked at.
The one that they submitted was the last one that was approved by you guys.
Did you guys look at that?
Yeah.
I asked you, you guys said you didn't.
Was the one, the last one that you guys approved. I don't have it all in front of me right now, but I have the dates and everything.
I asked last month if you guys looked at the old site plan. You guys said no.
I don't recall.
Well, look at the minutes.
Well, I mean, we're looking at this.
Whatever, it's old.
And old is no good.
It's old, it needs to be updated, they need to come in and do the right thing. Spend the money. Come in front of us.
It was based on a complaint from a neighbor that was not following their, the irrigation of their own property. That's why the fence.
But then why is the planning commission being drug into it? If it's a neighborly dispute, then it needs to be
That's
handled
why it
that
was an
way, so-
administrative
And the reason-
review, so it would be a very minor.
The reason he put all the
It's not,
dirt,
it needs to be,
the reason he put all the dirt there was because the water was flowing onto his property. Ackett's was supposed to contain their own water on their property, not on the next door neighbor's property. That's why the next door neighbor put his berm up there. So if you went back and looked at the original plans, it was supposed to be containing their own water that flowed off the property. Because when they put the parking lot in, it was gonna create more of a water flow. So when you have more of a water flow, you're supposed to contain your own water on your own property. And that's how that all went. You weren't here, you don't know about it.
Okay, but this is not what we're supposed to be discussing is the administrative review. I mean, this is an ordinance in our book. If the board asks us to perform an administrative review, we would have to do it.
On
Because
an
it's on
existing-
the
existing
books.
plan.
then also, getting back to this, is the letter that we got from Christine Anderson. As we discussed the current provisions of section 4.04, which created an administrative review committee, and give that committee authority to review and approve minor amendments to existing plan, renders the administrative review committee a public body requiring the committee to comply with the provisions of the Open Meetings Act.
They're not making any votes, they are making a recommendation, or might be
Excuse me.
making a recommendation.
This is from the attorney. It's provision, they have to comply with the Open Meeting Act, so it has to be posted. It has to be announced. It says it right, I mean, that's our attorney. That's what she says. So that's another thing that needs to be looked into. I was shocked that all of this was allowed. I just felt like there should be some guidelines.
We had a hard time doing administrative review, but we all agreed to it on applicants that are doing something at the moment.
That's
Yeah.
not-
And
that's
it was
not-
supposed to be a sudden change.
That's not in the ordinance,
That was in the discussion, that's when we created that.
but that's not what's in the book. My question would be, because of the Open Meetings Act, is how we would conduct this type of meeting.
Is what?
How we would conduct this kind of meeting. If this is basically a committee meeting, because we don't have a quorum. Would it be conducted, it would be posted, you'd have an agenda, and we run it just like a regular meeting. Did you allow public comment? Or is it just a discussion among the committee to review the information and make a decision?
You would follow Robert's rules, so you would have like just one public hearing. It wouldn't be as, extensive as your regular meeting agenda, right? But you would have call to order, roll call, approve the agenda. You wouldn't approve the minutes, that would be
Right.
done. Public comment, and then your business, and then adjournment.
So you would have public comments, okay. So this is basically gonna be a meeting that we'd have to have here at the hall, and there's gonna obviously be fees and things, because there's gonna be wages and noticing and things like that. It's gonna be like it's gonna be like the planning commission light.
So why not have a planning commission then?
Yeah, you're charging them the same rate.
It's,
Yep.
Well, it's intended to be more flexible, and since there's only the chair and the vice chair, easier to coordinate and schedule such a meeting, as opposed to trying to get a quorum of the full commission.
But
Okay.
we have a meeting scheduled every month, and we cancel it because there's, I don't know.
Lots
And
of
if the
business.
guy really wants to have another meeting, he can post another meeting throughout
He
we can
pick
have a
another
second meeting
yeah.
throughout the month.
We've done that before.
We have.
Correct. I think it's just intended that it's easier to get a quorum of the chair and the vice chair and convene that meeting at, a date, as opposed to getting a whole quorum of the commission. It's, administrative site plan reviews are, they're common in every community that I work in. If Armada Township is not interested in having one, I think that's really your first question, if you want to have administrative site plan reviews or not. If you don't, then you should look at removing the language from the ordinance itself. If you are okay with having them, then establishing some guidelines, whether it's in the ordinance or it's in your bylaws, for those subcommittee meetings would be appropriate.
Do we have that many, is there that much of a demand that we have to have these meetings? I mean, it's
The administrative reviews.
the administrative, actually. Do we have to have them? I mean, is it that user-friendly right now to
well,
where,
it's not user-friendly.
okay,
MEDC would say yes, have the administrative review committee provisions in your ordinance so that you can utilize them if needed.
okay.
Since
But-
I've been here, I think it's just been the fence.
Maybe this particular issue is just not good for this, but I mean, this,
Right.
on its face, it's still a tool for the township to operate and take care of their service, their customers.
Right, it's not intended to be the norm, right? The
Just
planning
less
commission is the
convoluted.
norm. But it is a tool in your,
Can we come up with an agreement on plans that are being done within their time limit?
No, you'd have to change the ordinance.
Well,
And it's,
we've done that before.
Yeah, we're changing a few of them. All of these.
but,
I mean, I could see when a builder's out there doing some building and the plan is wrong for some reason, or he wants to add the bathroom bigger. I could see them coming to you and doing that. But for someone that's been out 20 years and has to have a special meeting between two people, just bring it in front of the board. It's been 20 years. Why does two board members have to have it instead of the whole board? Are they in a hurry for something?
Obviously
in the
not.
case of,
It's been over a year.
in the case of something like this, where it was a minor thing, it was just a fence, and it just came back before the planning commission,
And we're good.
would it still be, you would look at just what they're asking for is the fence, or is it open up the whole site plan? I mean, would you still be looking at just that green belt fence line, or would you be looking at the whole site plan?
You have to look at the whole site plan, because there was a
That's
building
what I was asking the planner
they
about.
didn't, there was a building there that they didn't take down that was supposed to have been taken down. They didn't take that down.
Okay, Laura?
No.
In the case where we had a minor, like say we're looking at a fence, which
Mhm.
is minor, we only have to look at it because it's in a non-residential district. Normally, we would never see a fence, so this is a non-residential. and they were coming to us for that fence, how would the planner look at that? Would you be looking at the fence, or would you be looking at the entire site plan?
In this specific instance, I would just look at the fence. It's what they're asking to change their screening from one mechanism that's allowable under the ordinance to another allowable mechanism. If this were, an example, another community that I'm working in, they're adding a second drive-through lane to a restaurant, right? So they're changing the parking, they're changing the configuration, they're changing the access drive. At that point, we are taking a look at the original approved site plan, much more detailed, and making sure that everything is in compliance, because, I mean, the site circulation is changing, and the way people are using the site is changing, it's gonna be more intensive. The screening, however, on one property line is a much smaller scope of application.
Okay.
But we've had meetings since this administrative review thing should have been done, but we've had planning commission meetings, it could have just came and it could have been done, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty simple as that. And it's not that I am against administrative reviews, I just would like to see some guidelines in there, so everyone is treated the same.
But the other consideration is that the administrative review committee at any point can say, you know, we're noticing that some things on the site, this isn't quite what we approved, you know, a decade ago. Let's have it come back to the commission and let's look at this a little bit closer. That's always an option available to this body.
Sounds good.
Right, so now, do you need bylaws for a committee? You know, how we're gonna,
The MSU extension doesn't require that you have that in your bylaws.
so, I mean, this can be a very informal meeting, post it, agenda, take public comments, go through the information, the reviews of yours, the building inspector, look at the site plan and such, and decide.
Yeah, and usually, in my experience, you know, there's not even usually a secretary, or someone from the clerk's office at the meeting. It's the chair or the vice chair that just takes the notes and then presents them to the commission for approval at the next regular meeting. So it's more
You do have
just-
to take minutes,
Mhm,
record
yeah.
your, and make a report.
But since it's only like one item,
Yeah, it would only be one item, I can't see ever having
Right.
two of these.
it's
Well-
not the same.
What should happen if the chair or the vice chair isn't able to make it? Then does the secretary of the planning commission, you work your way down?
No, it would need to be the chair and the vice chair, so you'd have to find a time that would work for those two individuals.
Because it's
Thanks.
listed there, right?
She got me on it.
Mm-hmm.
My concern, Laura, with this is, the only thing I see is being notified. So if there's a one punch list item that where the chair and vice chair is addressing for said customer, do you notify the other commissioners, hey, this is what's happening? Is that what these other townships are doing? Or they just do it?
They just have to get, like in your ordinance, it says, you must provide a report to the planning commission each month regarding the issues which the administrative review
I
committee.
saw
heard.
that, yeah.
Yep, so that's all.
But
And-
I didn't know if you'd give them a, you know, a heads up that this is
If we-
happening.
If we had notice, we would too, because we always do.
Gotcha.
Yeah, in some communities, the chair maybe will send out something, just kind of an FYI, not to have a discussion amongst the commission, you know,
Right,
via email,
right.
but just for information,
Right.
to keep everybody abreast.
Okay, so, let's see, did we accomplish anything here? I forgot what you had on that one. Basically, just that we had the questions that Beth had, but Beth, a lot of your stuff is things that would go into an ordinance.
I don't think so. I think it's guidelines, a
Just
set
as-
of guidelines. That's all just so we have some type of guidelines. I think there needs to be.
I mean, the review fees are already addressed in here, all costs associated. I mean, that one's already,
I
get
know,
it,
but
that's a
I do
given.
recall what somebody had mentioned to me, so that's why I brought that up.
Can I ask you one more question? What is, all right, so how many items, punch items, do they have on their, this committee that DJ and Beth would be at?
What's the maximum?
Yes, like, is there a benchmark, like, there you could only have one thing you're addressing, or is it three things, or is it 10 things?
It could be as many as qualified for administrative review that the administrative review committee wanted to discuss, as long as you noticed it.
Yeah, sure.
Typically, like with other townships, it's just one, maybe it's two.
Typically, yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
usually it's just one. It's that specific item that needs attention in the near term.
Right, because like, what stops it from being open-ended to do?
Usually, I mean, they're not,
You don't have to specify, is
Well,
what I'm
They're
asking.
so minor, you'd have to have one of these situations.
I
You'd
know.
have to have a couple of developments going at the same time,
I
or,
just wanted to, yeah, and I saw that too, but, all right, thank
And
you.
This list was just suggestions. That's what I wanted.
do you
I
want,
wanted input as to what people
okay,
thought.
Oh, no, I wasn't passionate, I didn't mean it that way.
okay, well, do you want to go through this? I mean,
For,
Okay. number one.
number one, original date of site plan and update. It should be provided by the applicant, maybe be less than a year old. That's the way I felt. That was my opinion. I'm not saying it in stone, but this is my thought, and I wanted other people's, what they thought. Only original projects that are in the process of the original construction within the correct time frame. Update noted on blueprint, signed and dated by professional on the drawing. So we have a professional that sees it and is gonna sign off on it, so it's safe that, yes, this change is, it will work with your ordinances, and for safety's sake, especially being commercial, it's open to the public. And then the review meeting, I guess that's kind of been addressed, because it should be in person with the applicant, the planner, the secretary, chair, vice chair, and other professionals that are needed. Shouldn't be done email-wise or phone-wise. It should be here in the township, that's the way I felt. So you can actually look at the plans and see that. Review fees, which are taken care of. Project started or completed prior to administrative review. So if somebody comes in after the fact, like they've already done it, they got caught, I think that they should go before the planning commission rather than have an administrative review. That's my personal opinion. An application, I mean, I'd like to see an application to where they fill it out and request an administrative review. It should be signed and dated, the date that they filled it out, and, when the township
Should
received
we
it.
be agreeing with these as she goes?
What's that?
Should we agree with this
Well,
concept or disagree?
I think we'll
I mean, there
get
are
our
good,
opinions.
they're good points, or, if someone might think they're a bad point, so why don't we go through
Okay.
each one individually?
okay, well, we just went through them all,
Okay, yeah,
so.
we just went through what,
Okay, let's start right at number one. What are your thoughts on number one, that it is a project less than 1 year old and basically in process? Anybody?
I think it should be like that. It should have some kind of guidelines and dated to where this construction thing is in progress at the moment. They need a sudden change will hold up progress. And that's what I thought this was all about. The builder has a slight change. Instead of waiting, come and see you guys. They're gonna change the print a little bit, and you guys are supposed to agree to it. And the engineer was gonna be there. I mean, that's what this was all about. Not something that doesn't even have a site plan to it. So I agree with the first one.
Anyone else?
I agree with it.
I mean, I don't see that in the ordinance, that, it has to be an existing, an open site plan that's being worked on I mean, obviously, that would be the times you use it the most, but,
Well, do you agree with this then, that it should be less than 1 year old? Or are you
No,
open to 20, 30-year-old site plans?
I'm open to minor amendments.
No,
If
but
somebody-
I'm talking about the date.
No, I don't agree with the 1 year, I think. If
So
somebody,
you-
if
so
somebody,
could you-
somebody came in 2 years later and said, you know, we found out we really need a fence. That, you know, we're bothering the neighbors, we'd like to put up a fence. Okay, let's, you know, got it on the plan, there's the fence, everything looks good, it's
Okay,
helping.
wait a minute, they
then-
got it on the plan. You said, how did they get it on the plan? Did
They
they draw
revised, they
it?
revised their plan.
They drew it themselves? Or did they have an architect or an engineer or somebody professional draw it?
It has to be done by a professional. I mean, everything that's done on a commercial piece of property, and even on the sudden changes, the bathrooms and all that, that is all done by an architect. They don't just draw it up and say, bring it into you. I mean, there's safety standards you gotta follow on this kind of stuff, and you can't,
According to our ordinance, it should probably be done with an architect, because our site plans are supposed to be by a professional.
Chair? I think the important thing, the most important thing for this is that it's not just a drawn-on site plan, but they've taken the original site plan and updated it with like an electronic copy that is scaled, right, and sealed, and then furnished to the township.
All right, so it should be, I agree that it should be a professional site plan, because our guidelines in here say that our site plans have to be done by a professional architect, plant, you know, whatever, so. So that, I agree with that, but I think the 1 year, I think you could have something come up 2-3 years after the fact and realize, oh, we really needed a fence, or we needed that, bump this out to put a air compressor in it or something like
When
that.
you change the structure though, DJ, you're changing the footprint of the building. A fence isn't,
That is
But
not
you-
minor.
But you
That's
can,
my
Right.
point.
Administrative review is about minor changes,
I know.
not structural changes.
I know, Norm, that's,
Yeah.
if you let me finish, that's my point, because you're saying, you're just moving out a wall.
well, no, I'm sorry, you can't do that because we changed that. It says it's not creating additional square
Can't do
footage.
that.
So you can't do that, that was my
Right.
mistake.
Typically, when I see administrative site plans in other communities, maybe they are relocating a dumpster, or they are adding a generator and they need to do a concrete pad with some screening
Yeah.
around it, or they've decided that, well, their landscaping is now 20 years old, it's overgrown,
That's,
they wanna redo their landscape plan, they wanna make sure that the irrigation and the species are appropriate, and maybe they
Right.
wanna change out their lighting in the parking lot, things that aren't materially changing the plan, but still need to be reviewed.
So what would be the difference? Is it the cost difference for them to do administrative review as compared to planning commission? It's a cost.
Usually there's a significant cost. So for instance, it may be a couple $100s for an applicant to come in and propose some lighting and landscaping changes versus, in some communities, a site plan
Right.
may be $1,600.
So, in answer to the question, I agree that it should be a professional site plan, but I don't think there should be a 1 year time limit on it. So, that's just my opinion. The meeting, we know that's gonna be a meeting that's gonna be held, Open Meetings Act with a agenda and public, and the review fees we've addressed. Project started or completed project administrative review request. Doesn't seem to be the MO in this township. People do things and then try and fix it back-ended. What is your opinion on that, Laura? I mean, I'm sure this happens where people ask for forgiveness.
Oh, yeah, you see this a lot. I would just say that, maybe there could be consensus on the administrative review committee on how you'd like to handle those, so that if you get, let's say the fence in particular, you don't find that it was acceptable that they've installed this already, and you want it to go to the full planning commission, that's within your right to send it back to the commission. I mean, you have that available.
What happens if the chair and the vice chair disagree? So then what happens?
Then it would be, you'd have to have a quorum of the individuals, the township planner and the zoning administrator.
You need three out of four, basically.
Correct. Mhm.
So it'd still be a quorum. Or, I mean, it'd still be a consensus. Okay, so what are your thoughts about projects that are already existing or started before the review?
I mean, you have the perfect example out there what happened before without the engineer being involved. You have a fence that's underwater, it froze, it busted. The engineer would have never done that. So, the people who do things beforehand, I think they should have a full review through this board. Why are you giving them the benefit of doubt because they did it first? They tried to get away with it. We'll have them go through the whole board. It shouldn't have been done like that. It should have been out of the water, the fence.
Was it any better when the pavilion came before the full board and everybody lost it, other than the park?
Oh, yeah, that was.
I'm just- But it's, the only thing I can think about that is in a situation where something like that is done, it's probably better if it's seen before the whole, but it's gonna be a case by case. Application for administrative review, it makes sense that you would have an application to have all the details on it. So I mean, the only thing I see I don't like is that it's an ongoing one-year thing. Other than that,
You don't,
and the fact, I don't know what to do with that, already started one, but at case-by-case basis.
what about like putting a time frame on that, maybe if you want it more than 1 year? Or do you wanna continue?
I wouldn't address it. It's either, it's something that happened to a site and it's minor, it's one of these minor things, then you do it. That's not, the whole thing is, it's very minor.
But they would still have to have professional plans from
Right.
that.
They should have professional plan. Correct. So, in the case of one that's kind of sitting on the table, they don't have the fence drawn in by a professional, so that would really meet our requirement, and they would probably need an application. And at this point, they might as well go to the planning commission anyway, because it's pretty convoluted, and I would think that, like I said, that would be where you would be looking at just your review would be very similar to the review you gave us for the administrative review, I would think.
Right. Well, that all came up with the processing facility. They changed gears. And I think that's where this all got screwed up. Anyway.
Okay, so, I mean, we're not doing any work to the ordinance. I mean, it's just been completed, and it's just the things that, how it's gonna be handled, that, if somebody brings it in, they do have to have, a professional site plan, where they would basically take their site plan, have the professional draw it on there and sign it, and fill out an application of what they're intending to do. And if it was a minor amendment, then we would have this meeting, which, I don't know if we'd have just a separate time, or if we'd schedule those on a meeting night. It'd be hard to schedule on a meeting night, because you don't know how long the potential meeting would go. It'd probably be a separate evening.
Yeah, sometimes the community likes to have it still on the same night of the week, so having it on Wednesday, some Wednesday of the month. Others are completely flexible. Some even had it on a Saturday,
Okay.
because that was when people could get together.
How long do you have to drive to get here?
That's good.
Okay, so,
The weather's good. Yeah.
so we're not doing anything on the administrative review ordinance, other than the fact that the way that it's being handled, that I think we're in agreement that we should have an application and have site plan that has the professional draw in the fence and measure it.
And if you have a separate fee, that would need to be adopted by the board into the fee schedule.
Well, the fee would be determined by what your costs are to do. I mean, it's gonna be flexible depending on the level of the administrative review, and then you've got wages for 4 people,
And then noticing.
and then noticing, correct?
So, are we setting up just basic guidelines, not touching the ordinance itself, but just having guidelines as to how this is to proceed?
Well, per our ordinance, it says that we have to have a site plan that's, you know, done by a professional, so we'd have to have that, and we should have an application. And then, you know, whatever the costs are, that would be determined by
Charge them accordingly.
adding, you'd have to, Christine would have to charge them for the notice and the meeting wages, and she'd probably just have to get a quote from the planner as far as what the cost would be, or, I don't know how the fees work exactly, it's done by that end of the table. Right? You'd have a fee schedule, but that's obviously not on there. And that would be a board action, but I mean, it says all costs associated, so I mean, I guess we would just do the thing and have a bill at the end, or you get money up front and a retainer and
Get money up front,
Yeah.
I would think.
you can have an estimate and see how it shakes out, so. All right, so we're not changing on this, but we just basically had to hash out some of the ways that we would do this. But,
So, do you have applications from other communities?
Yeah, we
Examples and stuff?
we could provide something.
So we have something.
wouldn't it just be a site plan application? It's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, usually it's just like scaled back and then the requirements are on there
Okay.
and like who the administrative review committee is, that kind of thing, that process.
Okay. All right. So are we, is that something that the planning would do as far as an application, or you're gonna wait till we have a request for this application, or what's our best action at this point?
I would recommend to be proactive. We can talk about if we can just do that under the retainer or whatnot to get the application or what your department might need.
Okay. Okay, well, the last item on our PC projects is Article 7, the zoning districts, table of permitted uses, and this is something, well, we've been hearing about it, but this is something, the first time we're seeing this. Looks nice, but do you want to go through that, Laura?
Yeah, so, this is just to make the ordinance a little bit more user-friendly and like at a quick glance, understand what uses are permitted in all the districts. So, on page 73 of your current ordinance, is where this would start, and that's Article 7, zoning districts. So, what we added in section 7 was just a table of the districts themselves, and then what articles pertain to them. And then the rest of this language is the same, that didn't change. And then we were proposing a section 7.01, which, doesn't exist today, but those would be the permitted use tables. So you have a table for residential uses, for public, recreational, commercial, industrial, and it just shows if the use in the row is a permitted land use by right, which is green, or if it's a special land use with yellow, And then the last column are the use standards. So it, quickly tells you what section to go to see those additional site development standards. So this isn't a final draft. This was the first go. I think there's still some clarification regarding the special agricultural overlay district that we need to clarify. But this is a trend that we're seeing in zoning ordinances, so nothing's been changed with these uses. We're not proposing any changes to the districts. This is just representative of the uses that you do have.
Looks good.
We knew you were coming. There's a blank page right there after 7.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that I think we're trying to figure out is the zoning ordinance where the actual word copy is, so that this can be updated, like in a manner that flows together nicely, as opposed to just inserting a whole new page. Because even when you go through the ordinance itself, like the fonts change from some different sections, like it's been kind of put together. So if we were able to get a word copy, or maybe the previous planner has a word copy.
PDF. We can't use that.
No.
I can reach out to Clear.
Yeah, they may have the word copy that we could then update with this, and just make it a little bit more uniform for you all to use.
Okay, like I said, this is still not a finished copy, because the one that caught my eye was private stable, which we don't really have a
Not yet.
private stable ordinance. We just have that, under our ag keeping of count, which is what
Mhm.
you've got down below here.
Yes, that's the language from the section itself, from the district.
It just needed a name.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Yep.
Okay, everybody likes the
It just
idea of
needs
going with
what?
these tables and kind of,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it takes
this
a
is-
lot.
is this feasible for us to slowly rein this zoning ordinance in piecemeal? You think we can accomplish that?
To update it and
Yeah.
add some, like,
Yeah, a little bit like this, where we put in some nice, graphs and stuff, or,
Yeah, could you streamline the whole thing like that? Seriously?
you can for a cost, I'm sure you could.
Yeah.
It would be, yeah.
And you can
yeah,
do
the
it
zoning
by
ordinance
cost.
rewrite, but,
Yeah, but, I mean, you think this is something that's feasible, though, is to, like, put these pieces in,
mm-hmm.
piece by piece?
It helps make it user-friendly much.
Gosh, you couldn't make it harder.
Yes, I mean, so ideally, we can, keep working on these under the retainer as it provides, in the month, and, like, another table or, feature of the ordinance that we see a lot in newer ordinance today is a similar table that has all of the different columns as the dimensional requirements, and then the rows are the districts, so you just have one table that has all the dimensional standards, so it shows you what the front yard setbacks are for every district at a glance. That's something that would be nice for your ordinance to
Setbacks,
have, yeah.
And another question, when you're doing something like this, we're not changing the information, we're just organizing it.
Correct.
Does this need a public hearing to make this change?
Yeah, I
Okay.
would still, just because it is new text
Okay,
that is elsewhere in the ordinance, but
okay. All right, any conversation or questions on the, going through and adding these type of use tables?
I have one question.
Randy?
I just want to see if I'm figuring this out right. In the past, we had a farmer that was selling rocks,
Okay.
and he says they needed a permit to sell rocks. Now, would that be under mining, under the industrial land use? Is that why you have the special land use there? Or would that be in a different area under the residential use? Because you have it under an industrial land use. And he
Mhm.
was a farmer that was selling rocks, and that was considered mining. So,
was it more of like, like not a building materials yard?
No, he was a farmer. He had a bunch of rocks that he was selling,
Yard full of rocks.
and he got caught selling the rocks, so he needed to probably get a
Thank you.
special land use or something because it was considered mining.
And he was actually extracting them from the ground?
Yeah, he grows rocks.
Yeah,
Armada, we grow rocks.
no. They just extract themselves.
Frost pushes
They
them out.
come out automatically, they grow themselves.
I'm gonna have to look into that one a little bit more. I haven't heard of that, what your standards are for mining as well.
Okay.
But I'll.
I was just kinda curious if it was, if you were lining it up with the industrial, seeing it was under agricultural, you had a special land use there.
I see, yeah,
Any other discussion? Okay. All right, so we're starting to get these kind of somewhere close. Got a few that are getting real close. That kind of wraps it up for our PC projects. We're still writing, right?
I'm good.
We're good on PC projects?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to public comments. No public comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It is now 9:10, let me just check the computer, there's a few people online. Are there any public comments online? Okay, okay, I have a public comment online. Go ahead. Who is?
Okay, thank you. I think it might be a little bit of a delay, but my name is Robin Spalding. And I think, I just wanted to ask or actually make a couple comments about some issues that I listened to with the commission. One of my questions is, and I know not every property runner, that if you do a project in advance, it should not be allowed. And my question is this, and you don't have to answer if it's not a go. If you were to put, in instance, a covered front porch on the front of your house, would you have to have a permit for that? I didn't get a chance to get a hold of the planning administrator today because I worked later than that. I wasn't sure if that was necessary.
Okay, I understand your question. You're asking if you needed a permit to put a covered addition onto a porch?
Yeah, like.
Right. That- Well, that would be a residential, and that would be, you would need a building permit, but you would not come to the planning commission for that. Talk about your latency.
Yeah.
Okay, I do appreciate that information, because I really don't know.
Okay.
If it were on a county right away, would that require an additional permit?
Can't build on it.
It sounds like you want to build in the right of way, which you could not do that. But, I mean, these questions you could address, you can call the building department, and they could address these questions for you.
You could address, you can call the building department, and they can address these questions for you. Okay, thank you so much. I do appreciate your information, because I understand this has happened at 20779 32 Mile Road, and I would like this to be an acknowledgement to the planning administrator and code enforcement that I believe this may have happened, and I do not think the planning commission should be exempt from what you require from everybody else that I watch and all these. So with all due respect, thank you for listening.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your comment, and the best thing is to contact the township during the week. Thanks.
Is that the deputy supervisor?
Thank you for your comment. This is in contact.
Okay, are there any other comments online?
Is that, okay. With all the feedback, it's really hard to tell.
Okay, seeing no other public comments, the time is now 9:13. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
That was Sarah.